How many of you have ever been annoyed by another driver's lack of having their lights on when you think that they should? Yesterday was a good day for that, right? How many of you have ever realized you didn't have your lights on when you thought you did? At some point in all your driving. Interesting.
Usually when someone flashes their light.
Usually when they flash it, yeah, you know, and so it happens to all of us, right? And so I'm just pointing that out because as I was driving through the not blizzard, but sort of not very easy to drive through yesterday, I noticed some irritation happening in me from the blankety blank who didn't have their lights on, so it was hard to see them in front of me. And I went, well, that'll be a good talk. Everything is sermon material. And I was like, so I'm like allowing them to take away they're not doing anything. I'm writing the story to allow myself to be out of peace. And really, in those situations, really we need all of our attention to be focused on the task at hand and not about the blankety-blank driver, right? Because there's plenty of other things to pay attention to. And so once I noticed that, I was able to be like, okay, well, bless them on their way and get back to what I needed to do. And while that little shift, and it doesn't have to just be drivers, it do whatever, whatever that blankety blank person is doing. If we just shift that one little conversation in our head, that's probably not going to get us on the Nobel Peace Prize list. But it does bring more peace to our life, and it makes a difference, right? Because if we can remember that we've all made the same mistake at some point in our lives, that's why I asked both questions, it's sort of like, well, maybe this is the one time they've ever made that mistake. What if it is the one time they've ever made that mistake, and shouldn't we have compassion for them? So that's what's been on my mind a lot lately, is that we are the peacemakers. We are the peacemakers. We can't wait for someone else to do it for us. We all are part of making peace happen. And so we're going to look at today some peacemakers and see what we might be able to apply to our lives. Last year, I read the autobiography of a remarkable young woman named Malala. You've probably heard of her. She is that Pakistani activist who was shot in the face for riding the bus to school. And it's a little more complicated than that. Because she had been an activist for girls going to school and getting education for quite a few years by that point. She had written a blog anonymously for one of the European news organizations about her experience, and she and her father were very much advocates for girls getting education in their town. And so she got shot because they threatened her, and she did it anyway. And all of her activism and that she did ended up that she got the Nobel Peace Prize 2 years ago, and the youngest person so far to ever receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And all of that work that she and her family did up to that point wasn't because they were trying to win a prize or because they wanted to become famous, even though both of those things have happened. They did it because they knew that that was what was theirs to do. They did it because it was right. They knew it was time for a change. And what Malala said in 2014 at the Girls Summit in London, she said, "Traditions are not sent from heaven. They are not sent from God. It is we who make cultures, and we have the right to change it, and we should change it." Now, the situation in Pakistan and in the area that she is from is super complicated, as is anything. And I wouldn't be presumed to understand all the bits and pieces of it, especially since it was a year ago that I read the book, so it's not all completely clear anymore. But what I do know is that this young woman has something to teach us. And that is that we have the right, and maybe even the duty, to change our cultures and our world when we know that it needs to be changed, and that we can. That it takes courage and tenacity. But isn't pretty much anything worth doing take courage and tenacity? And so next, we're going to look at the Buddha and some teachings of Buddhism. The Buddha quote says, "Conquer anger with non-anger. Conquer badness with goodness. Conquer meanness with generosity. Conquer dishonesty with truth." Sometimes easier said than done, right? And from the Pali Dhammapada, which is a writing from that time, "Hatred is never appeased by hatred. Hatred is only appeased by love. This is an eternal law." And from the 8th century poet Santideva, we're just going to pretend I know how to say these and I did it right. "One's mind finds no peace, neither enjoys pleasure or delight, nor goes to sleep, nor feels secure, while the dart of hatred is stuck in the heart." Ooh, I like that. I mean, I don't like the idea of the dart of hatred stuck in the heart, but there's a really great visual there, right? And I don't believe that hatred gets us anywhere, except spinning our wheels, like maybe we've experienced in the last week in our driveways. It's like being mad at the other drivers. It's not doing anything to them, but it's doing plenty to us. And there's so much energy expended in hating someone or something. There's a lot of energy put into that. You know, read even just the headlines. You don't even have to read the articles. You can just read the headlines. In our day-to-day life, maybe we use the word hate when we don't really mean it. And so one thing I'd like you to consider is how we can relanguage and take the word hate out, which might help us take the feeling of hate out. Maybe we mean, it's not my preference. Instead of saying, I hate pickles, which I don't, I can say, not my preference. Or, instead of I hate such and such, so and so, we can say, that's not in alignment with my values. Or instead of being, it's about the person, but it can be about, you know, that particular behavior really bothered me because I, value truth, or I value whatever. You know, instead of just being about a blanket statement. This is hard work. This is hard work. It's much easier to just throw out everything you don't like and say it's bad. So when we use more clear language, when we do that, we give an opportunity for clear and connection. We give an opportunity for better understanding, and So when you say, well, I don't, such and such isn't my preference because I prefer blue, which I do, then you can be like, oh, instead of me just saying, well, I hate yellow, which is not true, but whatever. We're just using easy things like colors. If I say I hate yellow, then it doesn't really tell you anything as much as saying, well, I prefer blue. That tells you a lot more because you can still go through a whole lot of other things before getting down to the right thing, right? And so if we are more clear with our language and not just using hate or language like that, we can actually make more connections. Because we've all had that feeling, probably, when someone has said something kind of violent at us. Maybe, we suggested something like, oh, I hate it. And you're like, It's kind of shocking, right? And what if they said, oh, well, I really don't like that. That doesn't work for me. And then you can be like, oh, well, I understand you better now, and now I can actually have a connection. These are the pieces that move us more towards peace. So Buddhism teaches us that hatred hurts us all, and that love and compassion are the antidote, not more hatred. And finally, we're going to look at the Bible and Jesus. Throughout the scriptures, and in many other faith scriptures too, there's this reoccurring theme to keep focused on God. All the disastrous, junky things that happen usually in the Bible happen when people get distracted from God, which could be read as an ego trip for God, but could be as a reminder to stay on our spiritual path, to stay centered in our spiritual truth. So I'm going to go with that, not an egotistical God, but to remember that, because I don't believe in an egotistical God that's making us pay for our goof-ups, but I do believe in cause and effect. So if I go around dropping a bunch of junk because that's what I want to do, and I don't, I'm not paying attention to my divine truth, you know what? I'm going to end up living in a junkyard. That's how it works. But if I knew it was stayed centered in my spiritual truth, I would know that I don't want to do that to my environment. So I would find another way. The story of Jesus' life is that he included everyone. And his frustration was with those who forgot God, forgot the spiritual truth. He didn't care if you were a quote-unquote outsider. He taught forgiveness, inclusion, compassion, love. And he wasn't interested in vengeance and hatred or excluding anyone based on who they were or where they were born. He didn't say during his story of the Samaritan that it was the Samaritan's fault for getting hurt or that he deserved it. And he didn't say to the woman accused of adultery that she was outside of favor forever. No. He said, help those you can help. He said to forgive and have compassion because we've all made mistakes. He said the first commandment is love. And so, in 2 weeks, we're going to be starting our series following the seasons of peace and nonviolence. And we'll be exploring many facets and ways to bring more peace into our lives and be that ripple of peace. We'll be looking at lots of different people who have made a difference in peace and the world. And I really do have it all planned out because soon the door, I've already got on the list of sermon themes for all the way through Easter. Yeah. And so there's lots of different ways that we can chip away at whatever's getting in our way of being more peace and that we can express more peace. So we're going to look at a whole bunch of different ways. And so for today, for this week, we remember from Malala to be courageous and to stand up for your rights and the rights of others and what you believe is yours to do. And from our Buddhist teachers, we are reminded that hatred hurts us and that we can change our words and our life to compassion and love. And from Jesus, we remember to stay focused on our own spiritual journey and not judge others for what they do or where they come from, but just mind our own lane, so to speak. And so, with every little step away from discord and hatred, we are building a life and a world of love, peace, and harmony. Starting with forgiving the person who doesn't have their lights